A woman who walks through life with no close friends. She's learned, perhaps through pain or choice, to be content with her own company. She doesn't turn to others to fill her days, she turns inward. Our world tells her she should have a circle of friends because isn't connection with others the sign of a full life? But what if, for a moment, we look at her solitude in a different light? What if, instead of being a sign of lack, her solitude is a testament to something richer, something much deeper? In the stillness of solitude, there is a unique opportunity for self-discovery, one that is rarely afforded in the hustle and bustle of social life. When a person is alone, free from the distractions of external voices and opinions, they are left with only themselves to reckon with. This solitude allows for a deeper examination of one's thoughts, feelings, and desires. It is in these quiet moments that we begin to uncover the layers of who we truly are, beyond the identities shaped by others. Without the influence of friends or society, a person can reflect on their values, their passions, and their fears. The absence of social pressures creates a safe space for self-exploration, where there is no need to conform to expectations or put on a mask. This is not the loneliness of isolation, but the kind of solitude that fosters growth. It invites an individual to look inward, to explore the depths of their inner world without fear of judgment or interruption. When we are constantly surrounded by others, it is easy to lose touch with ourselves. Our identities become tangled with the roles we play in relationships, whether as a friend, a partner, a colleague, or a parent. We begin to measure ourselves by how well we fulfill these roles, often forgetting who we are at our core. In solitude, these roles dissolve, and what remains is the essence of our being. There is no one to impress, no one to compete with, no need to perform. What exists is simply the truth of our own experience. This space of self-reflection can be both liberating and challenging. It is in solitude that we may confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, patterns of behavior, unacknowledged fears, or desires that have long been buried. These realizations are not always easy to face, but they are essential for growth. When we are forced to sit with our own thoughts, we can no longer ignore the things we have been avoiding. We begin to understand ourselves more clearly, and with that understanding comes the power to change. In solitude, we also have the time to cultivate our own passions and interests. With no external distractions, we can explore what truly brings us joy, what excites us, and what gives us a sense of purpose. Often, in the company of others, we compromise our desires to fit in or meet expectations. But when we are alone, we can rediscover what we love without needing anyone else's approval. This is a chance to nurture the parts of ourselves that may have been neglected or forgotten, to connect with our true desires and ambitions. Furthermore, solitude provides an opportunity to tune into our emotions in a more genuine way. Without the noise of everyday interactions, we can better understand what we are feeling and why. We can sit with our sadness, our joy, our anger, and our contentment, and learn from them rather than rushing to escape them. Emotions, when fully experienced, offer valuable insights into our inner landscape, and solitude allows us the time and space to listen. It is through this quiet introspection that we learn to trust ourselves. When we spend time alone, we become more attuned to our intuition and inner wisdom. We start to rely less on the opinions of others and more on our own sense of truth. This process of self-discovery, though sometimes difficult, is ultimately one of liberation. It is about becoming comfortable with who we are, embracing both our strengths and our flaws, and finding peace within ourselves. Wholeness from within is a concept that challenges many of the prevailing beliefs in our society about happiness and self-worth. In a world that constantly urges us to seek validation from others, to look for completeness in relationships, possessions, or achievements, the idea of finding wholeness from within feels like a radical departure. Yet true wholeness is not something that can be acquired or given. It is something that must be realized, cultivated, and embraced from the inside. At the core of this idea is the understanding that we are already complete, even before we seek anything outside of ourselves. Many people go through life feeling like something is missing, always searching for that elusive piece that will make them feel whole. Whether it's a perfect partner, a group of friends, a career achievement, or a material possession, the search often leads to a sense of longing that is never quite fulfilled. What is overlooked in this pursuit is that the feeling of being incomplete stems from a misunderstanding of who we are. We are not beings that are constantly lacking something, we are whole, even in our moments of vulnerability and imperfection. Wholeness is not about perfection or the absence of flaws. It is about accepting ourselves as we are without the need for external validation. When we stop measuring ourselves against others and their expectations, we can begin to see that we have always been enough. This inner wholeness does not come from meeting certain milestones or fulfilling societal norms. It comes from within, from a deep connection to our true nature, free from the pressures of comparison and external judgment. In a world where so much emphasis is placed on what we do, rather than who we are, it can be difficult to appreciate the value of simply being. But true wholeness is not something that can be achieved by doing more, having more, or becoming more. It is found in stillness, in presence, and in acceptance. It is in those quiet moments when we are not striving to prove anything to anyone, when we are simply living in harmony with ourselves and the world around us, that we come closest to realizing our own completeness. This wholeness also means embracing all aspects of ourselves, the parts that we are proud of and the parts we might wish were different. To be whole is to accept both our light and our shadows, understanding that both are integral parts of our being. We cannot reject parts of ourselves and still be whole. It is the acceptance of our flaws, our mistakes, and our imperfections that allows us to experience true completeness. The more we embrace our entirety, the more we begin to feel a deep sense of peace and self-assurance, grounded in the knowledge that we do not need anyone's approval to be worthy. Moreover, wholeness from within fosters an authentic connection with others. When we are content and whole in ourselves, we no longer seek relationships out of need or dependency. We approach others with the understanding that we are not looking to them to complete us, but to share in the experience of life. True connection arises when two whole beings come together, each bringing their fullness to the relationship, rather than seeking to fill a void. In this way, we realize that we are never truly alone, for we carry our own sense of completeness with us wherever we go. To find wholeness from within is to stop seeking it outside of ourselves. It is to turn inward and recognize that everything we need to feel complete is already present in us. It requires us to stop searching for validation, to stop comparing ourselves to others, and to begin embracing who we are in our entirety. Breaking social expectations is a powerful and often necessary act in a world that is continually trying to shape us into predefined roles. From the moment we are born, society begins to impose norms and ideals upon us, standards of behavior, appearance, success, and identity that we are expected to live up to. These expectations can be explicit, like the pressure to follow a certain career path or marry by a certain age, or more subtle, like the unspoken rule to fit in with popular culture, to conform to trends, or to maintain a certain image of happiness. When we break free from these expectations, we reclaim our autonomy and invite the possibility of a more authentic existence. At the core of social expectations is the desire for uniformity. Society often rewards conformity because it is easier to manage a world where everyone follows the same set of rules. From school to the workplace, we are encouraged to follow the crowd, to adhere to the norms that others have set, and to fear standing out. But the problem with conformity is that it suppresses individuality and discourages us from discovering what truly matters to us. It keeps us trapped in cycles of doing what is expected rather than doing what is meaningful to us. By breaking these expectations, we are not rejecting society, but instead choosing to create a life that is more aligned with our true selves. When we refuse to live by society's standards, we challenge the idea that there is one right way to live. Social expectations often limit our view of the world, offering only a narrow path for success and happiness. But life is not a one-size-fits-all journey. By embracing the freedom to choose our own path, we open ourselves up to the possibility of a life that is richer, more diverse, and uniquely our own. We learn to see that there is no single definition of success, no one right way to achieve fulfillment. Each individual must find their own path, based on their values, passions, and desires, rather than following a script written by others. The fear of judgment is one of the biggest reasons people cling to social expectations. We are conditioned to believe that if we don't conform, we will be rejected, ridiculed, or ostracized. The desire for acceptance is deeply ingrained in human nature, and this fear can be paralyzing. However, breaking free from these expectations requires us to shift our focus from seeking validation from others to seeking internal fulfillment. When we let go of the need for external approval, we discover that we are free to create our own sense of worth, one that is not contingent on meeting the approval of others. Furthermore, breaking social expectations allows us to redefine what it means to be truly happy. Society often tells us that happiness is achieved through material success, social status, or the perfect image. But this kind of happiness is fleeting, dependent on external factors that are beyond our control. True happiness, on the other hand, comes from within, from the alignment of our actions with our inner values and desires. When we stop chasing external markers of success and instead focus on living authentically, we begin to experience a deeper, more lasting form of fulfillment. Choosing to break away from social expectations is an act of courage. It requires the willingness to stand alone, to question the norms that have been passed down through generations, and to trust in the wisdom of our own hearts. It's about stepping into the unknown, embracing uncertainty, and trusting that the path we create for ourselves is valid, no matter how different it may be from the one others expect us to follow. This process of breaking free is not always easy. It comes with challenges and discomfort. But in doing so, we create the space for true self-expression, for a life that is meaningful and deeply satisfying, independent of society's rigid definitions. Connection is often viewed as something that happens between people, an exchange of words, emotions, and experiences shared in the company of others. We often think of companionship as the ultimate form of connection, believing that our deepest bonds are formed through friendships, romantic relationships, or family ties. But the truth is that connection extends far beyond the confines of human interaction. There is a vast and profound sense of connection that transcends companionship and can be experienced in the simplest and most unexpected ways. One of the most profound connections we can experience is the one we have with the natural world. In the stillness of a forest, by the edge of the ocean, or under the vastness of the sky, there is a quiet, unspoken bond between ourselves and the earth. The wind that rustles through the trees, the rhythm of the waves crashing against the shore, and the way the sun filters through the leaves all offer a kind of companionship that doesn't require words or social exchange. This connection with nature is not dependent on others, yet it fills us with a deep sense of belonging. We are reminded that we are a part of something much larger than ourselves, something that is timeless and unchanging. Similarly, connection can be found in the stillness of our own inner being. In moments of solitude, when there are no distractions or external pressures, we can connect with the essence of who we are. This inner connection does not rely on others' validation or approval. It is simply an intimate relationship with ourselves. It is in these quiet moments that we come to understand our own thoughts, feelings, and desires. We listen to our own needs and nurture our own growth. This connection with ourselves is the foundation for all other forms of connection, because when we are in tune with who we are, we become more attuned to the world around us. Part 2 is a powerful form of connection that does not require companionship. A piece of music, a painting, a poem, these can all evoke deep emotional responses and create a sense of unity with something beyond ourselves. When we engage with art, we tap into a shared human experience, one that transcends time and space. Even if we are alone in a room, listening to a song or admiring a work of art, we are connected to the artist, to the emotions they poured into their creation. and to the broader human experience that their work represents. Art has the power to bridge distances, to connect us to something universal and timeless, without the need for physical interaction. In this way, connection can also be found in the simple act of being present in the world. When we are fully engaged with our surroundings, when we are open to experiencing life in all its richness, we form connections that go beyond companionship. The person who smiles at us on the street, the stranger who holds the door open, the feeling of warmth from a stranger's kindness, all of these small, everyday moments offer a connection that is deeply felt, even if fleeting. These are not relationships in the traditional sense, yet they still create a sense of unity and belonging. They remind us that we are all part of the same world, experiencing life in parallel, even if we do not directly interact. The idea of connection beyond companionship also extends to the idea of interconnectedness in the universe. We are all bound together by the same forces of nature, by the same cosmic energy that flows through every living thing. The stars, the planets, the trees, the animals, and the people, everything is connected in an intricate web of life. Even without direct contact, we are part of this vast living system. We influence the world around us, and the world influences us in ways we may never fully understand. Yet in this interconnectedness, there is a profound sense of unity and connection that goes beyond the need for companionship, revealing a deeper bond between all things. Freedom from social mirrors is the liberation that comes when we no longer rely on others to define us. From a young age, we are conditioned to look outward for validation, to see ourselves through the eyes of others. These social mirrors, the reflections we receive from family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers, shape how we perceive our worth, our identity, and our place in the world. We adapt ourselves to fit into these mirrors, molding our behavior and actions to gain approval and avoid rejection. But when we break free from the need to be validated by these external reflections, we step into a realm of true self-expression and authenticity. Social mirrors are not always explicitly pointed out. They are subtle, often woven into the fabric of daily life. They are the subtle cues we pick up about what is considered attractive, successful, or acceptable. We learn from an early age what makes us liked, what gets us noticed, and what makes us fit in with a certain group. This creates a cycle in which we continuously adjust ourselves, striving to live up to the standards others have set. The problem with this is that it keeps us disconnected from who we truly are, as we are constantly modifying ourselves to meet someone else's expectations. When we live according to these social mirrors, we begin to lose sight of our authentic selves. We start to believe that our worth is dependent on how well we align with others' judgments, and we forget that our value comes from within. We may feel anxious, uncertain, or even disconnected as we try to perform a version of ourselves that we think others will approve of. This constant effort to mold ourselves to fit into these mirrors leads to exhaustion and dissatisfaction, as we are never truly living for ourselves. Freedom from social mirrors comes when we stop measuring ourselves by external standards and start trusting our own inner compass. It requires us to turn inward and begin to see ourselves through our own eyes, not through the lens of what others think. In doing so, we realize that we are the only ones who truly understand our unique experiences, desires, and challenges. We are the ones who can validate ourselves, not through the approval of others, but through self-acceptance and self-love. This freedom doesn't mean we stop caring about others or their opinions entirely. It means we no longer let these opinions dictate who we are or how we live our lives. We begin to act from a place of inner conviction, choosing what aligns with our values and desires rather than what we think will gain us approval. In this space, we can cultivate deeper, more genuine connections with others because we no longer need them to define us. We meet them as equals with the understanding that our worth is not determined by how we are perceived, but by who we are at our core. Breaking free from social mirrors also means embracing our imperfections. When we stop looking for validation, we become more comfortable with our flaws and quirks. We no longer feel the need to hide parts of ourselves that we fear others might reject. Instead, we allow ourselves to be fully authentic, knowing that our imperfections are what make us unique. This process of self-acceptance is incredibly liberating, as it frees us from the constant need to perform or live up to an idealized version of ourselves. Living free from social mirrors is about embracing the full spectrum of who we are, independent of outside judgments. It is a journey of self-discovery and self-expression, one that empowers us to live more fully and authentically. When we no longer look to others to define our worth, we become free to explore and express the truest version of ourselves. In this freedom, we find peace, confidence, and a deeper connection to the world around us. Embracing loneliness as growth is a concept that challenges the typical view of loneliness as something negative or undesirable. In a culture that places a high value on social connections, companionship, and external validation, loneliness is often seen as a void, a space to be filled, or something to be avoided at all costs. However, loneliness, when embraced with a sense of openness, can be a powerful catalyst for personal growth. It is in the moments of solitude that we are often forced to confront ourselves in a way that is impossible when we are constantly distracted by the presence of others. Loneliness, in its essence, provides the opportunity for self-reflection and deep introspection. When we are alone, there is no external noise or influence to drown out our own thoughts and emotions. It is in these moments of quiet that we can turn inward and truly listen to ourselves. This process allows us to explore our deepest desires, fears, and insecurities, and to come face to face with parts of ourselves that we might otherwise ignore or suppress. In this space, we begin to understand who we are beyond the roles and expectations placed upon us by society or others. It is here that we can uncover what truly matters to us, what drives us, and what holds us back. The discomfort of loneliness often pushes us to examine our emotional and psychological patterns. When we are alone, we are not able to mask or avoid the feelings that arise. We may experience sadness, fear, or frustration. And while these emotions can be uncomfortable, they offer valuable lessons. Loneliness can act as a mirror, reflecting the areas in our lives where we may need healing or growth. Rather than running from these feelings, we can choose to sit with them, understand their origins, and learn from them. This process of self-exploration enables us to build emotional resilience as we learn to handle discomfort and uncertainty without relying on external sources for validation or support. Moreover, loneliness allows us to cultivate a stronger sense of independence and self-sufficiency. In the absence of others, we are left to rely on ourselves for comfort, motivation, and direction. This encourages the development of skills that we might not otherwise have had the opportunity to nurture, skills like self-discipline, decision-making, and the ability to find contentment within ourselves. When we are not constantly seeking approval or companionship, we learn how to create our own happiness and fulfillment. This autonomy breeds confidence and empowerment as we begin to trust in our own abilities and judgments. Another aspect of embracing loneliness as growth is the opportunity to discover and nurture personal passions and interests. When we are not distracted by social obligations or the influence of others, we have the space to explore what excites and inspires us. We might take up a new hobby, delve deeper into a subject of interest, or simply enjoy the peace that comes with solitary activities. These pursuits help us connect with our true selves, allowing us to engage in activities that are fulfilling and meaningful, regardless of whether or not they are shared with others. This solitary engagement can lead to a deeper sense of purpose as we discover what brings us joy and satisfaction from within. Ultimately, embracing loneliness as growth means reframing our perception of solitude. Instead of seeing it as something to fear or avoid, we begin to see it as a fertile ground for personal transformation. By spending time alone, we learn to be more comfortable with ourselves, to accept our flaws and strengths, and to find contentment without relying on others for fulfillment. In this way, loneliness becomes not a burden, but a powerful tool for self-discovery, resilience, and growth. Through it, we learn that we are capable of thriving independently, and that we are never truly alone, for we carry the fullness of our own being with us wherever we go.